was saying, I don't know if I can effectively stress the importance of this. We were flat out lied to, and lied to our face, and this Father Gamara being able to meet Anselm was a pretty moving thing. I actually have photos, Tim. Tim hasn't seen the 1,000 photos I took, literally, not of just this event, but you could see two incredible men embracing each other, and they were both weeping because, again, this man, Father Gamara, who was the head prior, was removed from office because somebody got really nervous. And so, Doug, here's what I want to get people to understand. We're undertaking, and this is no understatement, and it's because of the grace of God. You know, He chooses the foolish things to confound the wise. We're taking on the biggest subject, i.e. giants, i.e. stargates, i.e. core reality, and you know, if it wasn't for the people that buy our DVDs, we couldn't do this because it takes a lot of money. And, I mean, a lot of money, and you know, to run film teams all over the world. I want people to go to Legends, plural, the series.com, because they can watch the Holocaust of Giants on Vimeo. They can stream it. They can stream it as many times as they want. The same thing for the Unholy Sea. And right now, what is unfolding, and I shared this 24 years ago on talk radio, I said one of the biggest wars in history that's going to come is going to become within the Catholic Church between the traditional Catholics and between the desire of the Luciferians or the anti-Pope forces to overthrow all religious traditions of historic Catholicism. I'm not praising it. I'm just saying, you know, 24 years ago, man, they thought I had 4 eyes instead of 3. But the point is that what we're undertaking literally, and we've relished your prayers, and we're undertaking some of the most unbelievable. You know, I've talked to a lot of people, some very wealthy, and I pray that God touches their hearts to get behind this, because we're out there, and Tim and the film crew lays their life on the line. This is not being melodramatic, but what just transpired in Cusco, Peru last week and was witnessed. I think I understand now, Tim, the conference. No one can ever say that was made up. The biggest lie in the world, one of the biggest lies in the world, is uncovered. The reason they want to cover the lie and cover up the tunnels is because they lead all over the world. Now, let me share this, how it ties into Antarctica. For literally myth and legends of legendary times, there's always been associated this vast underground tunnel system that runs worldwide. Even Greg Evenson and some of his military contacts, remember when I think I was on your show and they were talking about some of these things broke free and were in the tunnels headed to South America? Now, I don't have any current updates, but I will tell you this, that something is going to trigger, a form of energy is going to be released. I'm not talking metaphysical, I'm talking literal energy, maybe unknown to us at this time. I don't know if it's a cosmic ray bombardment or whatever, that's going to trigger the opening of Sacsayhuaman. And if you notice all the stories coming out about these energy waveforms coming from Antarctica, they're headed right towards the coast of South America. A lot of it heads towards the west coast of South America. But I have another interesting revelation. I've been praying about this, and Tim, you and I even haven't talked about this. When Cain slew Abel, the scripture records that righteous Abel's blood cried out. Now, we know that there have actually been studies done on the frequency of blood. And literally, you know, in Genesis chapter 4, it goes into amazing detail about that. And why this is critical, and let me just read this real quick. And he said, this is God speaking to Abel after he has slain Cain. And he said, "What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now thou art cursed from the earth, which has opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth." Okay? The idea here, though, is basically verse 10, the brother's blood crieth out unto me from the ground. Now, Tim did a great job of explaining. One thing that people forget is this was one of the most ruthless and bloody civilizations in the world. And I can't calculate it because I don't know the frequency of blood drying, but imagine, Tim, if all of the ritual sacrifices, obviously because of the blood, cannibalism, etc., but imagine the combined frequency of that. In essence, I'm suggesting that their legends told them that it was specific forms of sound that would literally open the ground. So, again, I haven't even gone further than that. Doug, you'll find this interesting. I was praying before I went on the radio. I said, Lord, show me something I've never seen before. And for the record, I've never thought that thought before. Tim?
Well, I find that quite provocative, that thought, because it seems to me, having studied the Incan Empire and the fall of the Incan Empire, which is an incredible read. If you ever want to read something if you ever want to read a true historical account that's better than any movie you've ever seen, read the fall of the Incan Empire. Read the invasion of the Spaniards, the whole story, the whole historical account as detailed by the chroniclers concerning the invasion of Peru and the fall of the Incan Empire. It's absolutely fascinating. But it seems to me that the coming of the Spaniards it seems it was divine providence. And I don't mean in the sense that they believed. It wasn't a divine... they weren't divinely mandated by the Holy Catholic Church, by the Vatican and the Crown of Spain to go and take over the land of Peru, to take the land of Peru from the Incans and subdue the Incan people. But I believe that, you talked about the blood crying out, I believe that the Incan Empire had descended to such a degree of bloodlust and bloodletting and paganism that the hour for their destruction had come. That the cup was full and it was time for their destruction. And if you read the historical account of the fall of the Incan Empire, you'll see what I mean, because it was just absolutely mind-blowing the way that the Inca, this great, massive, the largest empire on earth at the time, how it just crumbled to pieces, how it fell in a domino effect. One thing leading to another, and the empire was literally captured by 168 conquistadors. And we're talking about an empire that could field 200,000 soldiers, fell to 168 conquistadors. And it's just a bizarre story, fascinating story. So I do believe that you're onto something there, Steve, that their cup had run over, that the transgression of the Inca was complete. And the hour had come for their demise. And I'll go further, and I'll say this: that the Inca had among them a priest order, a secret society of priests almost, and these were called the Almautas, and the Almautas were the great teachers, the wise men of the Inca. They were the keepers of the knowledge, and among them were the Quipucamayus, which were the keepers of quipus. The only form of communication, written or encoded communication, that the Inca possessed. And the Almautas, having studied the history of the conquest and then looking into some of the traditions of the Inca themselves and then talking to guys like Anselm P. Rambla, I am absolutely convinced that the Inca Almautas and perhaps even the Incan emperors were in contact with non-human entities residing in the Shinkana. And that was part of the reason why their empire had descended into such bloodlust and into such paganism. Now, if you go to Peru today, you will get this fable. You'll be told this fable, and it will be presented to you in the many representations and the paintings and the music and all of the tradition of the Inca will seem to be benevolent, that this was a wonderful, highly advanced, loving culture that just wanted peace and tranquility and so forth. That couldn't be further from the truth. The Incan Empire, much like the empire of the Aztecs and the Maya before them, was a totally despotic kingdom. It was a blood cult. It was absolutely a blood cult. There was a ruling elite, and only the ruling elite, the nobles, those who are of the blood royale, only they were Inca. They were the only ones who were called Inca. The other native tribes did not have the right to be called Inca, were not Inca. They were part of the empire. They were subjugated by the Inca. But the Inca themselves, the blood royale, the royal blood of the Inca, were the only ones who could bear that epithet. They were the only ones. And there's a reason for that. It was a blood cult. In fact, the Incan kings, the Incan emperors, and the Incan nobles would marry their sisters in order to preserve the bloodline. This was a blood cult, very reminiscent of the blood cult of the Nazis that would come later on in history, and of course reminiscent to many of the blood cults that existed before the Inca. So this wasn't something new. This was a repetition of something very, very old. In fact, the religion of the Inca was a sun cult. And this is that old, that the most ancient of occult rites, which was the worship of the sun and the serpent. And this was certainly the religion of the land in the Incan Empire, as it was in the Aztec and Mayan empires. The sun and the serpent. This was the duality. This was the dual deities of the sun and the serpent, of Inti, the sun god, and Viracocha, the serpent god. And Viracocha in Peru is depicted in many cases as a man. Sometimes you'll find him depicted as a bearded man with blue eyes and blonde hair and so forth. Very much like Kukulkan, the Maya, and Quetzalcoatl of the Aztecs. So this is the same group of entities that are interacting with these civilizations. They're interacting with them, and they're giving them technology and knowledge that was forbidden. It was knowledge that came from the world before the great cataclysm, before the flood of Noah. So I believe that these were exiles from the world, from the antediluvian world, from the world before the great flood, that were teaching, that were in communication with the Inca elite in Peru and with other native tribes, especially the Aztec and the Maya in Central America. By the way, the fall of the Aztec is it's almost parallel. Although it happened a generation before, it's almost parallel to the fall of the Incan Empire. I mean, it's astounding, the similarities that you find between the two. And that you find not only between the fall of those empires, but between the empires themselves. The Central American Empire, the Aztec Empire, was much more overtly bloody, was much more overtly pagan. But the Incan Empire, as I said, was about the Inca elite. It was about the elite household, the royal bloodline, and preserving that royal bloodline. The Inca did not look like the tribes they subjugated. Many of the depictions of the Inca show them as having paler skin, even mustaches in some depictions. And these are historical depictions. These are not modern depictions, but ones from the time of the conquest and after the conquest. So there's something very strange going on with the Inca elite, with the royal bloodline. And I believe, as I said, that the Almautas, the great masters of among the priests, the high priests and the keepers of the traditions and the oral traditions and the knowledge, were in fact in contact with non-human entities residing in the Shinkana, beneath the Andes Mountains. And that those very same entities were also in contact with the Aztec, the priests of the Aztec. And the nature of those entities, although you'll hear many, many people out there saying that the nature of these entities is benevolent and wonderful, these are great entities, the nature of these entities can be clearly seen in the nature of the cultures that they influenced, vis-a-vis the Aztec and the Incan Empire, which were bloody, which were despotic. These were tyrannical kingdoms. These were kingdoms, both of them, which worshipped the sun and a form of Viracocha. Viracocha in the land of the Inca, in the empire of the Inca, Kukulkan and Quetzalcoatl in the land of the Maya and the Aztec. These are the same entities. These are the same beings that are communicating with these empires. And God saw fit within 2 generations to bring them both to naught, to destroy them, to annihilate them off the face of the earth in an extraordinary fashion.
And that would lead in, Doug, to the idea that their blood cries out from the ground. Also, Numbers 13:32. I'm sorry.
I just said precisely. That's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm sorry.